Hi everybody, it's Az here from Heel vs Babyface in the Everbloom dungeon. Now if I was to ask you to describe to me how you go through Everbloom, you'd most likely say something along the lines of, well, we kill a tree, and then we go off and we kill a bit of a mental plant creature man thing, then we kill a bit of a mental mage type woman, and then we follow a huge hulking beast through a portal into Stormwind. Fair enough. So why don't we go to Stormwind? But just take a little bit of an alternative route. So from the entranceway, instead of going down and fighting creatures, just take an immediate left until you get to this little wall here. Go to the right hand side at the edge and jump up a couple of times until you find, oh, a little bit of a ledge, and another little bit of a ledge, and jump on over. And then you get yourself to the back side of the dungeon. Now, an invisible wall will tend to try and push you right down towards the ledge, but it doesn't knock you over, so you can just carry on, as per usual, walking around the outskirts here. Hello, creatures on the right-hand side, until you get to this tree. Now, I've only ever seen this done via a warrior, and what you want to do is you line yourself right up here, and then heroic leap onto the tip of that vine. Now, the reason is the invisible wall. If you get it onto the edge of the tip, then you actually bypass it. You need to get it, you see how the just lining up to the nth degree, and then move over to the right hand side and repeat the trick on the tip of this vine right in front of us. But we're going to have to wait until the cooldown on heroic leap runs out. Okay, so let's just all imagine 30 odd seconds, 45 seconds has passed, because it has, and then leap on over, and through we go once again. But this time, instead of heading towards the dungeon, we're heading away from the dungeon, and it's quite nice because there's a little road in front of us to do so. Now, this is where things get a bit trippy, by the way, people, so do hang on to your hats, because when we come over the bow of this hill here, yes, hello, mountains on the right, we get towards the end of the dungeon, and down below, not a lot. It's got this crinkled effect around the side. You know when you got those material scissors? My mother used to have these material scissors that looked like that, and you'd cut through stuff, and you'd nick off with them, and you start making Christmas cards with them, and cut everything like that, and then people just got sick of you. But you're only 6, so, you know, whatever. There's another pathway which then starts to take you into another direction. Once you get to the edge here, just head on over to the right-hand side. Instead of going down, just go to this ledge here, and then start following it across. But you notice what's over there on the right? Yeah, we've got a huge land mass, and if you notice down at the bottom there, there's actually shadows on the ground. Now, the reason why that's pretty massive is if there's a shadow on the ground, it means that the ground is solid, as opposed to when you fall through the earth and then eventually your character will die and you go back to the graveyard. So, in theory, that ground below, although there's nothing there, is walkable on. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But before I head on over to the landmass to the right, there's something else that I want to show you here, because this is really, really interesting indeed. Because if you go to where the Everbloom dungeon is on the live map before going through the portal, and you go up and take an aerial shot, all the kind of surrounding bits and pieces here don't mix. It's not as if they've, like, cut a chunk of the world out and then had the Everbloom dungeon pushed forward. No, this doesn't mix at all, and then suddenly, a horde camp. Now, there is no horde encampment like this or anything like this nearby to Everbloom. Look, left-hand side, flight path, in here, working lumber mill, the saw blade is going off on one. All this needs is a couple of NPCs. So it kind of lends it to the fact is, was there a little bit more to this dungeon initially, or did Blizzard just make sure that there was like little bits and pieces of development playthings that they were experimenting with for other stuff? And before I do continue on my merry way, because I want to go back towards that landmass, if I just head over towards this direction, we just got a bunch of trees on the ground. Again, definitely lending to the fact that below is solid, and then round at that side, we just see an ogre tower in the distance there. And that seemed to be connecting towards the edge of Gorgrond, and possibly going over into Frostfire Ridge. So I've made my way back to where the other landmass is. Jump off the edge. I'm going to die. Nah, of course not. Goblin Glider saves the day. So I use the Goblin Glider to slow my fall, and then, yeah, we are on solid ground. So mounting up, I'm going to head on over towards there. Now, it's a pretty long walk, so let's just skip the footage. Now, I've headed on over to the far right-hand tip of this landmass because it is by far the most interesting place to start from. And if you are an Alliance player especially, then things are going to start to look rather familiar to you right about now, because this is actually the coastline of Westfall. So we have literally started in the Everbloom dungeon, and now I'm walking on the coast of Westfall. That is pretty darn crazy. Now, we know that the dungeon ends with us going through a portal and being in Stormwind, but to have all of this still is quite amazing. And you have to kind of like think of the reason why. Why is there still so much of another zone, and we haven't even gotten to Elwynn Forest yet, in this dungeon? Well, it's got to be your view distance, hasn't it? When you get to the final boss, has anyone actually decided to have a look around? I mean, after you've defeated it, have you seriously decided to have a look around and see exactly how far in the distance there is? So this is it. This is when you've just defeated the final boss in the dungeon. If you could just position your camera, you see a little bit of Westfall over in the distance, but not too much that you could really make out that it was only, you know, a partial amount of it. But if I run over to the other side, you get a much greater view of Westfall from here. And look, that's where I've just been on my character. You can see all the area there, and it looks as if you're still in the active world. But of course, we now know different. We now know how Stormwind and Everbloom mix together in the same instance. So we're going to leave the faux Westfall behind now and go into Elwynn Forest, because there's even a section of this which has had to been put together. Now, I imagine that's just because, you know, you might be able to just tweak a few angles here and there and see through a battlement or see through a window. So it's absolutely incredible at the amount of detail which can go into a dungeon just in case somebody catches that glance of the environment from one of those areas. And notice how it just literally comes to a close here. It's like a huge chunk has just been ripped off. And although down below is still solid, so you could walk on it, it's this which has got me very, very interested indeed. Because you can't see this from any angle from the final boss whatsoever. So they haven't had to doll this up with trees and, you know, the farms and the pumpkin fields and all that kind of stuff. They don't have to be put in at all. But just from a completely different angle, isn't it amazing what it looks like with no trees? And it just kind of like makes me think to myself, God, a zone would look awesome if it had like a massive Alliance fortress in it. Yet it was kind of like rolling plains. Kind of like if Stormwind was almost placed slap bang in the middle of Nagrand or something. Wouldn't that be pretty cool? And even the little house just off the beaten track, it's still here as well, and it's got everything inside of it. So it's just cool how they kind of like reuse the assets, literally just cut, copy and paste some of the assets just to go inside of a dungeon. So with all that aside, let's just go and have a little look around the outside before we go into Stormwind itself to see if there's anything extra. There's no other landmasses in the distance. So it's literally one landmass is the Everbloom dungeon. The second landmass is the faux Stormwind, Elwynn Forest and Westfall, because you portal through from the third boss into the final boss. So there is a physical transition of your character. You are physically moving from one block of the dungeon to another block as if you were legitimately going through any other portal. So we go through the gates of Stormwind, very empty, very eerie. It is coming up to Halloween. No water in the moat, no need, nobody can see this. The Valley of Heroes, of course, with the old Khadgar model. And then there's one final secret here that's going to become very apparent very quickly. When we go inside of Stormwind, if I can just get my mount underneath the battlements, everything looks to be normal. Everything seems to be here. Because again, from where you were positioned on the final boss, you could see certain areas of Stormwind. So they do have to make sure that that's intact for you, in case you want to have a little look out there. But you try and go anywhere past this area here, and it's insta-death. You just drop dead. So there we go. That is the secret of Everbloom Stormwind solved. Absolutely fantastic. I've got to confess, this is one of my favourite secrets yet. It really is so cool. And a massive thank you to Teriyaki11 who discovered this. I haven't even heard about it. Never mind, tried to do some research into it. So big thank you for you, because you were the OG when it came to this. So I hope you enjoyed the vid, and if you did, do get a thumbs up and also subscribe. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Links are in the description down below, and I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. But before I go, I'd like to give a huge thank you to my channel sponsor Yaktronics, who deal with custom-made PC peripherals. That's mice, that's keypads, and also headphones. And you can get yourself a range of heel versus babyface products with up to 40% off the list pricing. And on top of that, if you use the promotional code babyface, you'll get yourself an extra 7% off your order. All the Yaktronic links and the promotional code are in the description down below. And I'll be back with more stuff very soon. You take care, everybody. Bye bye.